Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your source material articles, historical accounts, even chefs' memoirs, and distill the most important insights, turning information overload into pure, actionable knowledge.
Today, we're stepping into, well, probably the most exclusive and regimented dining room in the world, the British Royal Kitchen. But, we aren't here for a celebrity chef special.
No, we're
We're
looking.
looking at sources that define this kitchen not as a place of luxury, but as an institution that produces tradition, politics, security, and symbolism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you think of royal food, your mind immediately goes to what? Endless feasts and gold leaf on everything.
Mhm.
But the analyses and the memoirs you shared, especially from Queen Elizabeth II's era, they reveal something way more fascinating. Every single meal at Buckingham Palace is a calculated move. It's a system built entirely for control.
That is the central thesis we found across all the sources, from accounts like Darren McGrady's Eating Royally to, deeper historical dives. The food itself is almost secondary.
It's about the message.
It's all about the message. Every dish that's served is like a silent state document. It's signaling stability and order to the world.
Food as governance. That is such a powerful idea. So our mission for you, the learner, is to unpack how this culinary institution maintained order, delivered security, and communicated sovereignty.
Yeah.
Not through speeches, but through menus.
And kitchen discipline.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the first thing that just jumps right out is the sheer scale of it all and the military discipline involved. We have to start there.
We do, because that complexity explains everything else, especially the security. The royal kitchen, even going back centuries, it didn't operate like a restaurant. It functioned with what our sources call military discipline.
And that word military, that's key, isn't it? It implies a really strict hierarchy.
A non-negotiable command structure. And what's fascinating is that this hierarchy was basically set in stone for centuries. It wasn't just the big group of cooks. It was rigidly separated into these highly disciplined roles.
Can you walk us through that? Because it really shows where the power lay.
Sure. So at the very top, you had the master cook, who was the head chef, the manager. Then you had specialists, the pastry cook, the cellarer for all the beverages.
A very important job, I'm sure.
Oh, historically a very dangerous one. And then you had the person whose job was pure security, the official food taster.
Okay, but you mentioned one section was seen as the most critical. Which one was that?
It was the sauce cook.
The sauce cook. Why?
Historically, that was considered the most important part of the whole kitchen. Sauces were the most complex, the most expensive, and, the most flavor-defining part of a meal. To control the sauce was to control the identity and the diplomatic subtlety of the entire plate.
That's a brilliant insight. It's not just about cooking, it's about defining taste itself.
Exactly. And the scope of the whole operation demanded that discipline. This kitchen wasn't just for the immediate royal family.
Right.
It was for the entire palace staff, visiting ambassadors, official guests. We're talking hundreds of people sometimes.
And here's the point that really speaks to the structure of it all. The same kitchen produced different plates for different classes of people.
It did. And that's a profound socio-political statement, isn't it? The hierarchy of the meal matched the hierarchy of the palace itself. The quality of the stew in the staff hall was not the quality of the food in the state dining room,
Everyone knew their place.
even on their plate.
Let's shift now to the person who really defined that era, Queen Elizabeth II. You'd think someone who reigned for 70 years would be indulging in spectacles every night, but the sources, especially from her former chef, they completely shatter that myth.
They really do. Her personal brand, which was all about service and consistency, translated directly to her dining habits. She actively disliked ostentatious meals. That preference for simplicity was in itself a kind of political gesture.
So if it wasn't caviar all the time, what was she actually eating? What were the simple favorites?
Oh, they were incredibly British and straightforward. She loved lean white fish, like a simple grilled Dover sole, roast lamb with mint sauce. For breakfast, maybe scrambled eggs with smoked salmon.
And afternoon tea, of course.
Of course! Scones with jam and clotted cream. But the one thing she's most famous for, her real comfort food, was the chocolate biscuit cake.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But even in all that simplicity, there were some very strict rules. We have to talk about the most famous one, the garlic ban.
That's right. The Queen disliked garlic so much that it was, for all intents and purposes, forbidden in the palace kitchen.
But why did one personal dislike become an institutional rule? Was it just about her?
Well, it was maintained for what the sources call diplomatic courtesy. If the monarch is meeting dozens of dignitaries a day, having a strong, lingering scent on their breath is just not acceptable.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
It sounds trivial, but it was a measure of control designed to prevent any possible distraction or, offense during diplomatic duties. The simplicity was calculated.
Right. And that idea of calculation brings us to ritual. The kitchen was defined by ritual, wasn't it? The timing and structure were just as important as the food.
Absolutely. Take afternoon tea. It's not really a meal, it's a ritual of permanence.
Or the specifics.
It happens at 4:00 p.m. precisely. Never 3:55, never 4:05. It's served on fine porcelain. The sandwiches are always crustless.
A tiny detail that says so much.
It says everything is refined and controlled. Even the tea has to be strained. These tiny, unvarying details send a message. The monarchy's stable, the rules still apply.
What about the Sunday roast? That's another big tradition.
A huge one, and its significance went way beyond just lunch. It was a conscious effort to create a symbolic link with the public.
By doing what everyone else was doing.
Exactly. By adopting a middle-class custom, it reinforced this idea of a shared cultural identity. It was brilliant public relations, really.
But that shared identity kind of went out the window when foreign guests arrived, right? The core rule was not everyone ate the same thing.
Not at all. We know the Queen liked simple meals. Prince Philip, on the other hand, often preferred more rustic dishes, lots of game meats, but the real political theater started with state banquets.
And this is where the menus became diplomatic messages.
Absolutely. The menu literally adapts to honor the visiting country. It becomes part of the welcome. So, for example, if the French president was visiting, the menu would deliberately emphasize classic French techniques to show respect for their culinary heritage.
What about for a guest from the Middle East?
The subtlety there is even greater. The menu would feature zero alcohol as a gesture of profound respect. All dietary laws would be meticulously followed. Every ingredient becomes a tiny act of soft diplomacy.
This moves us beyond the daily routine to the really unique dishes, the ones created for the crown that represent the history of the empire.
These dishes carry so much historical weight. The most famous is probably coronation chicken.
Created for the 1953 coronation. Why is that such a perfect example of what the sources call imperial cuisine?
Because the ingredients tell a story. It's cold chicken in a creamy curry sauce. The chicken signified a return to abundance after wartime rationing. And the curry powder was an unmistakable link to India, reinforcing this idea of the Commonwealth.
So it was a calculated piece of culinary history.
Completely. And you see it in other dishes too, like kedgeree, which comes directly from the Indian dish khichdi. It's why the sources are careful to define this food not just as English, but as imperial cuisine.
Now, underpinning this entire system is a pretty chilling reality.
Yeah.
The constant threat of poisoning.
Yes. The sources make it clear that fear was very real, especially historically. And this is where that military discipline we talked about becomes absolutely critical. Food security for the monarchy isn't a logistical issue, it's an existential one.
And the countermeasures for that were never relaxed.
Never. There were three main pillars. First, the use of a food taster, a protocol that was never fully abandoned. Second, a completely separate and secure supply chain for all royal ingredients.
They weren't just going down to the local market.
No way. And the third pillar was internal. It was a protocol to safeguard the line of succession.
How so?
The Queen and the heir, the Prince of Wales, would sometimes not eat the exact same meal at the same time.
Wow.
It minimized the risk of a single attack vector, internal or external, taking out both of them. It shows the kitchen had to operate as a permanent security institution.
One dinner could end a dynasty.
Precisely.
So we've covered the hierarchy, the politics of simplicity, the diplomatic menus, the constant security threat. When you put it all together, what does it mean? What was the royal kitchen ultimately designed to represent?
I think it really boils down to three core values. It was designed to communicate not spectacle, but absolute stability. Not luxury, but unbreakable continuity. And definitely not extravagance, but meticulous control.
That idea of continuity seems to be the key takeaway. The sources argue the palace didn't offer shocking new food trends. It offered tastes that hadn't changed for centuries.
And that was intentional. There's a quote that sums it up perfectly. Royalty does not surprise, it provides confidence. Ultimately, the whole system existed to, as the sources put it, feed the mind before it fed the palate.
A silent promise of institutional permanence. That's a deeply insightful way to frame it. So the dishes served, from simple eggs to coronation chicken, they all whispered the same message. The state is here, Tradition continues. Order is not broken.
And that essential takeaway shows that some governments throughout history managed to survive not through the force of the sword, but through the ritual and discipline of the knife and fork. What does that tell you about the true role of culture in sustaining power? Something for you to mull over until our next deep dive.